as attached.
So moved.
Mr. Smelter makes a motion. I need someone to second.
Second. Ms. President.
Mr. Kimmer seconds.
Mr. Smelter.
Yes.
Mr. Kimmer.
Yes.
Mrs. Conrad Zangmeister.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman.
Yes.
Mrs. Johns.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to adjustments to agenda. Mr. Belleville, are there any adjustments?
None at this time.
Okay, moving on to section 2, information and discussions. Moving on to the superintendent's updates. Mr. Belleville, the floor is
Good
yours.
evening and welcome. I'm glad everyone could make it today. Very happy to report that now all 4 buildings are open and we're off and running in the school year. Really, it has been a good start to the school year. Obviously, a little bump in the road to start last week, and Bremen just got underway today. But across the district, and you'll hear from our principals this evening, I think it really has been a good start to the school year. So a lot of excitement in the air, and this week we really get ramped up with all of our fall athletic teams as well. So we're in it now. So it's exciting time here in the district. So I do want to give a quick thank you to not only our staff who handled last week really well. Thursday morning, late notice went out about the water leak and Bremen not having water, and we're having to cancel school. It was 15 till 6, almost 6 o'clock, and our bus drivers, our transportation team handled that extremely well. Maintenance team were right on top of things down at Bremen and in all the buildings over the weekend. And then, our teaching staff and all of our support staff, a quick curveball at the last minute, and everyone just handled it beautifully. Just kind of, put your head down, go to work, and handle the issues. And so to have something like that happen day one, and everyone really just take it in stride is a credit to our entire staff and their professionalism. So really happy about that. And obviously great leadership in all the buildings from our administrators as well, to make sure that we handled the adversity easily and still got off to a great start across the district. So thank you to all of those people. Also want to thank Mayor Burge in Rushville and Mayor Taylor in Bremen and the entire maintenance department down in the village of Bremen. They put in a lot of hours from Thursday evening throughout the night Thursday, trying to get things, or Wednesday night and the Thursday morning, trying to get things repaired so that we could open schools and get water restored. And then even little things like the water testing, when you do testing to lift a boil water advisory, the test sample has to sit for 24 hours. And they couldn't do that testing till Friday morning, so you can't check the test until Saturday morning. Well, that presented issues with finding a lab that was open and could come in on Saturday to do the test and those type of things. And the mayors and their staffs really worked hard to make sure that all those things happened, because they knew that school needed to get going, and if they had to wait till Monday morning to read water results, I mean, there was a good chance we would not have been able to open today. So really appreciate those guys and their staffs and all their hard work as well. So just wanted to thank them publicly. Agenda items. Not a huge agenda this evening, but a couple things I do want to point out. We have some coaches and volunteers that we're asking the board to approve this evening, and we're always thankful for our volunteers who not only give time but also pay to coach. We're truly appreciative of them, and then bringing staff members for the board's consideration tonight to fill our head swimming positions. And with that being a new sport, that's obviously an exciting time for us, and adding that program. So would recommend those, and can answer questions when we get to those parts in the agenda if needed. You will see an adjustment to the YMCA contract. That is for our before and after school programs. Obviously, we're excited about that. We're appreciative of our partnership with the YMCA, And the only adjustment in that contract is just changing pay schedule. When we first went into agreement with the YMCA, there was a payment from the district that would happen monthly to help with the staffing of the program. We're changing that to a semester-based funding model or payment schedule, just so it's a little bit easier on both parties. We'll wrap up at a semester and settle up the district in forming the partnership with the YMCA. The YMCA takes on a portion of staffing cost, and the district takes on a portion of staffing cost to try to keep the cost of the program as low as possible for families. So that's what that contract is in regards, just an adjustment of when we settle up. Instead of monthly, it'd be twice a year, semester and end of the year. And then also revisions to our Chromebook handbook. I'll talk about this a little bit more in just a second, but an update of the Chromebook handbook that was done earlier this summer is needed due to Senate Bill 29 that was recently signed by Governor DeWine. It will go into effect 90 days from July 24th, which should be right around October 24th. So we're just trying to get out ahead of that a little bit. Would ask that you waive first reading. The exact wording is in the board agenda, and it's basically Senate Bill 29 requires that we notify parents anytime that we monitor school-owned devices that are given to students. So this is kind of a precursor to having to send out announcements to families when we do monitor devices. We want to make sure that that's very clear up front, that we do monitor our devices. There were 7 exceptions to Senate Bill 29. I'll get into those in just a second. But so that's what that handbook revision is. We just want to try to get that updated as quickly as possible. That's why we're asking that we waive a first reading. It is a requirement to be in compliance with Senate Bill 29. So, last board meeting we talked about legislative update, and at our back to school professional development days with our staff, I told them that I was going to do a legislative update, but had decided to just wait a few more days because there had been a lot of changes. I'm kind of glad I waited, because Friday at about 2:30, 3 o'clock, the Supreme Court issued a ruling on Title IX guidelines that would have changed what I was going to present. So kind of glad about that. And where we are with Title IX, in 2020, the Title IX guidelines were updated and put into law. During the Biden administration, to change Title IX guidelines, it literally takes about 4 years to change guidelines. You have to have public hearings. You have to allow for public comment on any proposed changes. And then it is actually written in the statute that each suggestion, comment to the proposed changes have to be vetted completely by the administration before the guidelines can change. Well, as you might imagine, any changes at all that are opened up to the entire citizenship of the United States, anyone can comment on them, but all comments must be addressed. So as you might imagine, there were millions upon millions of comments, and it simply takes years to go through all of them and completely go through the process of changing Title IX guidelines. Well, we're at the point that the comments have all been vetted, and new guidelines were issued by the Biden administration, and they were to go into effect August 1st of 2024. So, roughly 18 days ago, the new guidelines were to go into effect. When the new guidelines were released, 26 states did sue the U.S. Department of Education over the guidelines that were being proposed. Some states sued over all of the guidelines. Some states only sued over certain parts of the guidelines. And the new Title IX guidelines that are in the 2024 edition of Title IX range from topics for protections for students who are pregnant and giving them spaces for addressing lactation issues or feeding a baby, you have to give dedicated spaces. Those type of guidelines, for the most part, were not challenged universally. Like I said, some states did sue over the entire list of all guidelines. The guidelines that were most commonly challenged in lower courts dealt around transgender rights and protections. Ohio was one of the 26 states that sued over things in the 2024 Title IX guidelines that would have given protections to transgender student rights to go to a bathroom that they identified with as a transgender student. Would also have guaranteed that students could go into locker rooms based on their transgender identity and could participate on sports teams based on their transgender identity. Those three topics specifically were in the Ohio lawsuit. The Supreme Court ruled on Friday. Well, back up just a second. The U.S. Department of Education and the Biden administration sought to overturn injunctions that had been awarded in lower courts, holding up the Title IX guidelines from being implemented. The U.S. Department of Education, the Biden administration challenged that, and it went directly to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled 5-4 on Friday afternoon that the injunctions were to be upheld, and they pushed the issue back to the lower courts and ordered that the injunctions would stay in place until the legal process could play itself out in the lower courts. So, long story short, states that did not sue must operate under the 2024 Title IX guidelines. States that sued on specific guidelines operate under the 2024 guidelines across the board except for the topics they sued upon to get injunctions on. And then states that sued over the entire set of guidelines will operate completely under the 2020 Title IX guidelines. So you have three scenarios. You operate under 2020, you operate under 2024, or you operate under a mixture of both. Right now, the guidance we have received, and we made this determination earlier this summer when this was still being played out in the lower courts before the Supreme Court ruled, we had decided as a district to follow the 2020 guidelines because there was an injunction in place and we did not want to train our staff on 2024, the injunction get upheld, have to go back, retrain on 2020, and then if it gets changed again, have to go back and retrain on 2024 once again. So we made the determination to just hold out. Every year you have to train your staff on Title IX guidelines. We do that through Public School Works. So we made the decision to train our staff on the 2020 guidelines, and we would hold there until we receive further guidance. In hindsight, I think that was a really solid decision because the injunction did get upheld on Friday afternoon. Ohio was not part of the lawsuit over all guidelines, but our legal team have given us the guidance that let's just follow the 2020 guidelines for now and then reassess as this plays out in the lower courts. So that's where we're at in regards to Title IX. It's obviously, it's a tough topic. There's a lot of debate on it, not only locally but within our state and across the country. And by the time this runs the gamut through the lower courts, we will have a presidential election that could potentially influence the lawsuits in the lower courts. Depending how the presidential election goes, I would expect if former President Trump wins, I would expect new Title IX guidelines to be created. It'll have to go through the exact same process. It'll be years before those would be ready to be implemented, or they could take the action of just throwing the 2024 guidelines out and reverting back to 2020 guidelines. So it'll, it's just one of those, there's a lot of uncertainty around the topic. So we felt it was best for us to just hang tight and let it play out a little bit longer. Any questions on Title IX? Okay. Second piece of legislation, House Bill 250, is in regards to the cell phone policy, and I did email out an update to board members this afternoon, so you have all this that you can reference back. Also sent this out to our staff for them to look at. House Bill 250 is a requirement that schools develop policies to reduce use of cell phones in the classroom. Governor DeWine is a huge proponent of this. I think most of us agree that cell phones can be distractions in the classroom. However, I think educators and I've also heard from parents that believe cell phones have a place. Parents are worried if there is an emergency and my child needs to get a hold of me immediately. There have been advocates across the country, over the years with school violence that, in a really bad situation, they want their children to have cell phones to be able to get a hold of them, which is completely understandable. There are times in education that cell phones and their capabilities are used for educational purposes that are very valuable in the classroom. We've had discussions amongst our administrative team. There's also value in teaching some life lessons, especially to our older students, about being responsible with technology and how you use it, when you use it, and modeling, real life applications of that. You get into a job and you're going to have a cell phone. You have to learn when it's appropriate to use it and not use it and some of those type of things. And that's part of what we do here on a daily basis with everything when we're preparing kids for life after school. So all of those go into consideration. Right now, I feel very comfortable that our elementary schools and our middle school are right on target due to the fact that at those schools, the cell phones are not out during the day. They're either in your backpack and put away in a cubby, or they're in your locker and put away, and they're not in the classroom. At our high school, we do give our teachers flexibility to create their own classroom rule because, all the things we just talked about. I think we'll have to look at our high school policy a little bit to make sure all the parts of it are in accordance with what the state is expecting of us. I think we're in good shape with our high school, but we just want to make sure we really look at that and have discussions with our building leadership teams, our district leadership team, and make sure that policy is exactly where we want it to be moving forward. We do have until July 1st of 2025 to bring a policy before the board for consideration. So this will be a topic that will come up again at a future board meeting. Senate Bill 29 is a bill dealing with student data privacy. That bill will go into effect October 24th of this year. And Senate Bill 29 is definitely creating some issues in schools. I believe the intent of the law was to put into place safeguards to protect student data, which schools have been doing. Columbus City, not Columbus City Schools, but the city of Columbus has been in the news lately due to citizen data, the data breach, and people's private information being stolen. I think the genesis of Senate Bill 29 was along those lines of trying to protect student data. But in complete honesty, I think Senate Bill 29 is overreaching and has really created some issues for schools. On school-owned devices that we give to students, our Chromebooks, our one-to-one technology, there are now restrictions placed on how we can monitor Chromebooks that are our devices that we own. Once we give them to the student, we lose some rights over monitoring those Chromebooks. I can tell you, since we went one-to-one, due to us monitoring and the hard work of our staff and our administrators, I believe we have saved lives. Whenever we utilize a program that looks at internet searches, that looks at things kids type, and if they have talks about suicide or they have talks about violence, we find out about that pretty quickly. And I can tell you, our administrators filled that information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If the Chromebooks are out, our principals get notified if something bad it comes across a Chromebook. And they put a lot of time, effort, and energy into protecting our kids. And Senate Bill 29 doesn't completely take that power away, but if we monitor a Chromebook or we access student information on that Chromebook, we have to notify parents within 72 hours that we've done that and the specific reason why we did it. There are 7 exceptions that allow schools to continue to monitor devices. One of the 7 is, if there's a threat to life or a threat of violence, then we have a right to get into that Chromebook, and obviously we'll continue to do that. But, and we have no problem notifying parents in those situations. That is standard protocol for us, and it definitely doesn't take 72 hours for that to happen. That is immediate. But one of the provisions in Senate Bill 29, one of the exceptions, is if you monitor student devices to be in compliance with state and federal law or to accept state or federal money, then that's an exception. You can monitor the device, but you still have to give notice to parents within 72 hours that you're doing that. Well, we accept E-rate money, which is a federal program, and according to E-rate, to accept that money, we have to monitor devices. So my question to our legal counsel, and a question they simply don't have an answer to yet, and I have reached out to our state reps to ask for guidance from them as well. Do we need to send notification to our parents on a daily basis? Since we have to do that as a requirement of the funds we receive for the E-rate program. That is obviously overkill to send the same notification every single day of the school year. But if that's what we have to do, then that's what we'll do. So, there are some things there that are definitely a little cumbersome. We do have to look at every contract we sign now that is used in a classroom, because student information is on there, to make sure that third-party vendors have FERPA protections written into the contracts with us. That's something we generally have always checked on anyway, but it is something we are going back through just to make sure that every contract we have, a lot of educational programs now are all web-based. It is extremely difficult to buy a hard copy textbook these days. People just don't make them anymore. Everything is pushed to online. So it's definitely presenting a challenge for schools, not just us, but all schools in Ohio. And hopefully we get some clarity on the expectations of what we're supposed to do in terms of parent notification. We are hopeful that by adjusting our Chromebook handbook and putting a notification in there that we do monitor, that covers us as we get some guidance here. But we know, by the letter of the law, that we're supposed to put in writing the exact reason that we're looking at a student's Chromebook and get that to the parent within 72 hours. So we're working our way through that. So any questions on Senate Bill 29? Senate Bill 168, and I'll stop after this one. The amount of legislation dealing with education right now is honestly overwhelming. There are over 100 bills out there that in some way, shape, or form have a tie to education. I kind of picked some of the highlights here, but we'll stay on top of this and track all the pending legislation and keep the board informed, keep our staff informed. But Senate Bill 168 deals with some education reform. There were a lot of pieces into 168. To list it all would take a little bit of time, but the main thing that I wanted to get in front of the board tonight is Senate Bill 168 does permit school districts to move away from the OTES evaluation platform if they so choose. The way the law reads, it says school boards can use a teacher evaluation framework that is created and adopted by the board rather than the OTES evaluation platform. So the board has the right to create an evaluation tool and adopt that as the evaluation tool for this district. In our situation, OTES is written into our negotiated agreement. We just agreed to a new 3-year contract. So if we would want to move away from OTES, it would have to happen in kind of 2 phases. We would have to have an MOU with our association that allowed the flexibility to change from OTES, and then the board would need to create a new evaluation tool and adopt that tool, and that would have to also happen in conjunction with the MOU, because if we're changing part of the contract, then that is a negotiated item right now. So whether we address this now, a year from now, 3 years from now, that is something that we'll have to work with the association on, and I'm sure Mr. Denny and I will have some conversations about Senate Bill 168 soon, but just wanted to put that on the board's radar that schools have the option now. You can stay with OTES or you can move away from OTES. So that's just kind of out there now. So any questions on that? All right, I think I've talked enough.
All right, thank you, Mr. Belleville. Recognition of visitors, I do not believe we have any.
No, ma'am.
So we'll move on to reports and presentations, and starting with our administrators' reports, and welcome back, administrators.
Thank you.
Let us begin by Mr. McPhail.
Good evening, everyone. As Mr. Belleville said, it really has been a really, really positive start to the school year. And really, every year here it seems like we get off to good starts, but there's been something different about this one. This is just, I think there's been an extra level of positivity, an extra level of focus. I'd just like to, in terms of the staff at the high school, all of the staff, teaching staff, support staff, our maintenance staff, custodians, aides, everybody came back focused and ready to go. Very positive, very upbeat, and I just want to thank them for all that they've done just to this point to get this year off to a great start. The students, that translates very quickly, I think, to how students react to the adults that are around them and in their lives. Our students have been tremendously upbeat and positive. So we're excited. We're excited about where we are so far. We did a new open house concept. We called it the Back to School Bonanza. And what we were trying to do with that, over the years we had noticed that our open house at the high school, the majority of the attendance came from freshman families and parents, and the participation rate for our incoming freshmen is well above 90%. There's some years it's close to every single person comes and takes part in, they have an orientation meeting that takes about 45 minutes, and then we have some activities for them. but we felt like that wasn't enough. We wanted to engage our sophomores, juniors, and seniors and their families. There's a lot of things that we do at the beginning of the school year where we'll have meetings and pull our upperclassmen, our seniors down for a graduation meeting, and our sophomores and juniors down to talk about class rings and letterman's jackets and those kinds of things. Of course, all that's through our representative and our relationship with Herb Jones. So we kind of bundled all that together, incentivized it. We had a student activity fair in the cafeteria. We had representatives from the Bremen Bank. We had Muskingum University was there. Ohio University Lancaster was there. The Career Center representatives were there. We had 2 of our military recruiters. All of our student organizations had a table set up so that families could come in, kind of walk around the cafeteria and see all that we had to offer at the high school and all the things that students could access as students at the high school. It was a tremendous success in terms of that particular part of the evening. We tied some gift card incentives to scavenger hunt. And the point of all this was the students, they had to be there to be eligible for these incentives. Had a partnership with the Falcons Nest. They were tremendous. They came over. They were serving hamburgers, hot dogs, sloppy joes, fries, those kinds of things. They also had ice cream. So we were trying to make it a big event. And I would say, without a doubt, first time out, everything new. It was tremendous. The place was packed. People had smiles on their faces. And so I think we hit the mark. So we've got something to build on there, and we'll plan to do that in the future. But that was kind of the cherry on top of what was already a really good start to the school year. So just a huge thank you to everybody that was involved in that. The planning started for that last spring with quite a few of our staff members, and just a tremendous job out of them. Of course, fall sports, things are getting rolling, and we're back at it. We've had a great start athletically. Our boys and girls soccer teams, Friday night football this past Friday, went over to Lancaster High School and had a 2-game sweep over them. The girls won 2-0, the guys won 2-1. So that is a great start out of our soccer teams. We're looking for big things there. Volleyball team opened up with a tri match at West Muskingum on Saturday. They won both of those matches in 2 quick sets. So they're off to a good start. A lot of games to come here this week. Of course, our cross-country teams open their season Saturday at the Brendu. That's in the Granville, Newark area, and so they'll be running over there to kick their season off. And this Friday night, we have our opening home football game. It's Hall of Fame night. Of course, the band's going to showcase themselves. They've had a great preseason. The weather forecast looks good, so we're really, really excited about what this rest of this week has to offer, and a lot of big things here, even in the next week. So we're excited about that. Just a couple of things in terms of the staff and the students academically at the high school. One of the things that we've kind of tried to focus in on, and it probably exposes a bias of mine, maybe it goes back to when I used to coach, but I feel like execution is more important than things. Our staff has done a lot of good work in making all the things that we're doing kind of relevant to the students that they apply to, and that's no easy task. And we feel like we've moved down that road pretty well. We'll continue to refine that, but we're kind of shifting our mindset just a smidge. We feel like there's 3 things that we want to focus in on. The first is not new, but it's I guess a different angle at the focus of data literacy. We collect a lot of very, very good data at the high school. The staff gives assessments that they created, or they use the state assessment tools to build their own assessments now that align to the tests that they need to be aligned to for whatever level it might be, AP, end of course exam, ACT, whatever it might be, web exams. So that's important, and we get a lot of data back from those assessments and from the prep work that we do in those assessments. So, and the teachers do ongoing formative, short, little, chunky assessments on data all the time. But we didn't feel like maybe in all cases we were taking advantage of the opportunities that data provides to us to be able to get our students to challenge them. I don't even care about the test. The test will take care of themselves. But to challenge the students, so that's going to be something we're going to be working with the high school staff, which will translate to the students this entire year on this concept of how we look at and use our data. And we're going to do that through a very specific tool that we can get into in more detail a little further into the school year. But if we can execute this well, this will give us a tool for every single thing that we do, whether we're going to analyze our discipline model, whether we're going to analyze our AAA+1 PBIS, the things that your students are doing that are positive, whatever it is. If you can collect data on it, we can use this tool to be able to input that data, work it through a process in our BLT, TBT teams, and come out of it with actionable items, because that's the whole key. We want to take this information, be as informed as we can, and then put a strategy into place that's actionable, and then rinse and repeat to see if it was effective. And, over time, over the course of a year, 2 years, you keep the things that are effective, you continue to analyze those, and you push aside the things that aren't as effective. And that's ongoing, it never stops. But we feel like that's something that we've done a decent job with, but we feel like we can really make some headway because we've got the foundational things all done now. So we're excited about that. The second thing, I hesitate to use the term because it's so overused in education these days, but the concept of rigor, we're going to start to push our students much more, particularly in our upper level classes, but across the board. Our students do a tremendous job. They are very dedicated. They do what we ask of them. So then that brings it back around to, okay, they're doing what we ask of them. Should we be asking a little bit more? And we think the answer to that is yes. That's easy to say, very, very challenging to put into practice, because most of us as educators feel that we're already rigorous. Okay, we typically do. So it forces all of us, principals, teachers, to challenge their own biases about how they go about doing what they do in their classroom. So this will be a process. It'll be a little bit messy. I think that's good, but we want to start to press ourselves to ask for just a little bit more over time. And I think more than anything else that we can do, that will help position us better. That'll take care of, if you want to have a conversation about scores, that'll take care of scores. If you want to have a conversation about success after high school, that will certainly translate to success after high school. So that is our second goal. And then the third goal we've been working on really, really hard, really since we transitioned into the principal role 8 years ago. Mr. DeStadio and I, and now Mr. Schaefer and our entire staff, this concept of mindset. Everything we're doing, we're trying to address the concept of how our staff and our students approach their day-to-day. That's the whole reason we talk about AAA+1. All those things are very specific in how they're targeted toward mindset. Successful people have winning mindsets, and that's really what we're trying to get accomplished with the students at the high school. So we're going to really continue to hone in on that. We'll incentivize it. We'll look for any way we can to find currencies, things that motivate the students, so that we can reward them appropriately when they do the things that they do, and they do so many great things. So that's really, there's a lot of things that'll go on, but those are everything fits into those three buckets. So that's our focus for the year, overarching. Two last things very quickly. You've noticed as you came into the high school entrance this past weekend, we've been talking about branding. I've talked to the board about branding for a couple of years now. So we are finally excited to be able to get this kind of off the ground. We're excited with what we've got so far. The signs for the inside of the high school are ready. It's just a matter of getting those installed. So here in the next couple of weeks, we'll be getting our branding materials inside the high school up. And it relates to all these things that we're talking about. It'll look great. So we're very excited about that. And then the last thing, maybe the most important thing that I wanted to throw out here, and again, we'll revisit this throughout the year as well. We have a new initiative that we're kicking off this year called Hope Squad. Hope Squad is where we're at right now. We have started the process, and I am really, really excited about what this offers our students. This is something that came up really about 2 years ago, some conversations at the high school, and Mrs. Rogers, our school psychologist, has taken this initiative. She's worked really hard to put it all together. We've got a teacher team, a group of teachers that are going to kind of lead this. But Hope Squad is a mental health, student-led mental health, student interaction, positive behaviors between students, how they do their day-to-day, that is student-led. It's a suicide prevention program, but it's so much more than that, because this is going to impact the day-to-day way these young people handle each other and support each other throughout the year. So we'll get into the details. We're still starting. We're still trying to learn and build the skills ourselves so that we can lead the students. We've had a couple of meetings. We've been trained, and we'll meet with our high school staff next Monday to roll it out to them. On Tuesday of next week, the students will, the entire student body will vote on the representatives that they think should be the Hope Squad team. We're going to target 5 per grade level, so we'll have 20 total to start with. And the characteristics of these students will be, it's empathy, compassion, trustworthiness, and it spells that out. So that's what our students are going to be voting on. So we'll do a vote on that next Tuesday. We'll select the team by the end of next week, and then we're planning a parent breakfast to bring the parents of these students in and roll this out to them. Our goal is to have this taken care of, ready to go into action in some form by the time we come back from fair break. So pretty ambitious timeline, but it's too important not to push it forward. So we're going to get it going, and we'll report back on outcomes. But there are so many things that we're excited about. But right now, I think that's kind of the things that at the high school we're most honed in on and really excited about.
Mr. Bill.
Thank you.
Or Mr. Hale, sorry. Did anybody have any questions for him?
I watched the video that the kids did promoting your open house, and that was great.
They did a great job,
Really
yeah.
good.
Thank you. All right, moving on, Ms. Hahn.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
We as well had a great open house turnout. We only had a handful of students in each grade level who didn't make it there that evening. And that just goes to show just the excitement that parents have and that the kids have wanting to come back to school. The first couple of days have been amazing. I just want to thank our staff for all of their hard work gearing up to get us back to this great start that we've had. We have 29 new students at the middle school this year, so that's a lot of new students in our building. 5th grade, I just want to commend them. They are doing so well. I know lockers are always such a process for the 5th graders to get used to at the beginning of the year, but they're doing so well. They ask questions. And tomorrow we turn on the bells at the middle school, so we'll see what that brings. That's always a little bit of nervousness for them, but they're doing fabulously. Speaking of some just curriculum, Science of Reading is obviously a really big push. We started some professional development with that last year with our middle school staff. Many of our teachers took some time this summer to complete Science of Reading modules that ODEW had sent out for them. And then before school, we actually had some representatives from CKLA and Amplify, the 2 textbook companies that have are the publishers of our Science of Reading curriculum. They are for our staff so that our staff could gain some knowledge and better understanding on how to roll out that new curriculum. We are going to have follow-up opportunities throughout the year, just so that as they are using this new curriculum, questions and so forth can be answered and have other opportunities for them to meet with representatives. We just want to make sure that, obviously this is implemented with fidelity across the middle school. And we've even, we're even working with our other content areas as to how they can implement some different components of Science of Reading into their curriculums with vocabulary skills and different things like that, just so that it's all embedded within the middle school. A little bit about counseling. Mrs. Gossett, we are blessed to have her full-time this year. And so I'm sure she's going to be very busy, as well as Mr. Funk. Both of them are getting out into classrooms this week. They're going to make sure they hit all the different classrooms just to make sure that all of the students in the middle school know what counseling services that we provide at the middle school. Mrs. Gossett is going to really focus on the 5th and 6th grade. Mr. Funk was going to get into the 7th and 8th grade classrooms. And then additionally, Mrs. Gossett is really going to head up our Tier 2 PBIS, which is, she is going to be focusing on some students who maybe need a little bit more intense help when it comes to behavior and how they can deal with some of those issues that they have. She'll be doing some small groups and some individual training with them, focusing on some social emotional learning, just so that they can be more successful in the classroom and outside of the classroom as well. Speaking of athletics, we have 22 students on our 8th grade team and our 7th grade team for a total of 44, so those are really good numbers. Our 8th grade team is playing away at Alexander this evening, so they have kind of a commute there. 7th grade football is playing home tomorrow against Millersport. Kickoff is at 5:30. Volleyball, we have 13 7th graders and 12 8th graders, and they play at Logan Elm this evening. Club soccer, we have really good turnout with that. Our girls team has 19 players and the boys team has 15. And the boys are actually playing at Logan Elm this evening as well. As Mr. McPhail mentioned, cross country has their first competition this weekend. And we have 6 student athletes who are going to be golfers. So they have their first match this week as well. So athletics are up and running at the middle school. Clubs, we have art club and robotics club that will also be starting here in the next couple of weeks as well. Really great opportunity for especially our new students, our 5th grade students coming into the building, just to get a chance to meet new people, get some new friendships, and also learn some new skills with art and that robotics. And then finally, just a couple of updates. We have our first parent advisory meeting this Thursday. That'll be in our library at 5 p.m. And that's just an opportunity. Mrs. Rice and I are there to share a lot of information with any parents who would like to come to that meeting about the middle school, about a lot of the curriculum, and just all the different things that encompass middle school. And then finally, Friday, August 30th, we have Mr. Ron Derry coming to present his character building message for our 6th grade students. We have been having him present for the last few years, and he just does a tremendous job, with his message, and the 6th graders and the 6th grade staff really enjoy having him. So that's what's going on in the middle school. Anybody have any questions?
Well,
All
thank
right.
you very much, Ms. All right, up next, Mr. Knott.
All right. Well, we had school. So if you picture Mr. Johns is Finding Nemo, I'm a Crab, your Little Mermaid soundtrack playing, kids are getting off the bus and getting out of the cars coming in. That's how we started the day. We had lots of smiles, lots of, we figured something was planned. The older kids told me, and then I had several kids say to me, we told our parents you were going to be very upset that we didn't have school on Thursday. I said, it was for a good reason. It's okay, guys. We're ready to roll. Our building looks beautiful. Shout out to the maintenance. I mean, you guys know it's the kids were even commenting as they were coming in today about the floor being so shiny and those things. We kicked off free breakfast and free lunch today. It's great to see the lines. It's good to see the kids eating. Several families reached out and thanked us for taking those steps. So that's definitely well received, and we're excited. A couple of tweaks just because of the number, but we'll get there. The staff, of course, has the bulletin boards, the classrooms themselves. You feel comfortable, you feel loved, you're ready to learn. So that's always our main point there. Under the C is the theme, if you haven't caught on. So all year long, our events will be kind of tied to that theme throughout the school year. The kids, it was cute, because we announced that in May. Several of them remembered as soon as they were coming in, oh yeah, that's right, that's what this is about. So that was good that we do that. Our open house, as always, it was packed. Kona Ice is out there. We very much, and it's important to me, we are just there to say hi, how are you, calm some nerves, show them some things, keep it very simple with them, talk about anything they want to talk about, and really just fill those questions and things that we weren't quite sure of so we can make sure we're ready to go for the first day. Staff does a great job with that as well. In the world of curriculum, I'm putting on my reading hat. We did have both SAS, Lexia, which is an online reading program, it's a supplemental, so we had that training for the second time. Teachers asked really good questions. You could see the majority of them went ahead and jumped in last year and tried out a lot of those things. So they had good, meaningful questions, meaning we're ready for that next step. Now that we kind of have this basic stuff down, what do we do next in these situations? The presenters did a nice job with that. And then we had in-person CKLA training. That's our new language arts curriculum. And it was good questions. Teachers definitely spent their summer digging in, being on those social media groups and stuff, learning the ins and outs and things that might make things quicker, easier, better. So there were, again, great questions there, and we'll continue to revisit all that throughout the year. It is interesting bouncing in both buildings, how much, I think they're worried, oh, we're so different, and really, honestly, good instruction is happening, even though we're just talking routines, procedures, which is what we want. It's the same. You're hearing the same good things, and so I think they're both a little nervous. It's actually just fine. We have good teachers in both buildings. We're doing a great job with that. Coming up, so we always start that slow or that soft start with the kiddos. So we are just talking about building relationships. We're talking about here's how we go to the restroom. Here's how we wait in line. All those things that are important to make the school year go better and easier for everyone. That's this week. Next week will be the assessment piece. So we'll slowly start to do some of those assessments. Okay, where are we with our kiddos? We kind of already have our tentative list of the kids we think we will need extra help. Is that still the case? Do we need to add? Do we need to take some kids off? Because some over the summer become huge readers and we're like, oh, what is, it just depends on what they bring. So that will be the next step. The coaches and I have already met, kind of have a game plan in place. We're just going to wait, kind of have, as we get those assessments, kind of verify, yes, we're good here, we already have that in place, hope we need to make these tweaks and things like that, and that's for both buildings. So all in all, we're in good shape. Today was a lot of fun. I always say, I should be tired, I won't be tired, because I said to Andy, who was, after all the kids left, I said, okay, what do we need to fix? What's our next step? And so she and I were making all these little notes, just because you want to be a little smoother, a little bit quicker. Kindergarten families, oh my goodness, you're nervous about your kid coming, then we call and say, we need to reschedule for Friday. Then we call and say, can you please reschedule for Monday? They've been great. The kids are so excited coming in. Parents have been really great questions from them. The most popular question every year since I've been an administrator is, on the first day, can I walk them down and take a picture? Yes, you can walk them down, you can take that picture. That's important for me too, as much as it is for you. But they've been really good. We gained 2 new ones today, so you just never know how that'll shake out. But that's kind of where we are at Bremen.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tokars?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, like my colleagues just said, I am thrilled to report that the kickoff to this school year has been nothing short of amazing. I could not be more proud of my staff. They have embraced many changes since last spring with open minds and open hearts. From new classroom locations to a brand new reading curriculum. The community showed up in full force for our open house and orientations, and our fabulous PTO kept everyone well fed and nourished. So it truly has been an awesome start. Our teachers and students are laser focused on expectations and procedures as we set the stage for a year where every student can soar at Pleasantville. We believe in the power of easing into the school year, just like Mr. Knott said, prioritizing a calm and welcoming environment. Tomorrow we're having a school-wide assembly to just revisit our PBIS expectations. We're excited to share something new this year that my PBIS team and I came up with. And so to celebrate all of the positives this year, last year we had SOAR tickets, which we will continue to have this year. And I think I told you in the spring that my staff handed out over 5,000 SOAR tickets last year, which was amazing, and the kids love it. We're going to continue that, but we're going to add something new. So tomorrow the students are going to find out that we are introducing SOAR Super Cash, and those are class-wide incentives. So if a non-teaching staff notices that your entire class is being safe and on task and accountable and respectful, a non-teaching staff member can hand the teacher a $50 Super SOAR Cash ticket, and the classes are going to decide what they're going to be working for. So they can work for $200 incentives, $500 incentives, $800 incentives and $1,000 incentives. And we're gonna chart this in the hallway, and I think the kids are gonna get super stoked about it. So substitutes can give out Superstore cash, but this is not to be passed out like candy. The class really has to be all following our SOAR expectations. So we're gonna set the stage for that tomorrow, and I'm super excited about that. We're also rolling out the red carpet for our new kindergartners with our staggered start starting tomorrow. And then by Thursday, we'll have all of our littlest Falcons under one roof. Mark your calendars for Friday, August 30th, our very first Falcons Nest Friday. So in collaboration with our ever generous PTO, we are gonna throw one giant birthday bash for Pleasantville. So typically our PTO provides ice cream for every student on their birthday, and they get that when they go through the cafeteria line. However, since we're doing free lunch this year and we're giving out more lunches than typically, we discussed with PTO and talked about something exciting for this year. So we're gonna do one big birthday celebration at Pleasantville on August 30th. So Tony from Falcons Nest is gonna be bringing the birthday bash ice cream, and we would love for our board members to join us. So mark your calendar for August 30th and come enjoy some birthday ice cream.
What time?
Oh, yes, that would be helpful. That's beginning at 2:15. 2:15. Thank you all so much for your continued support. We are really beyond excited for what's ahead of us. This year's gonna be one for the books. Any questions?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to the consent agenda section. Would you wanna
If you
do
guys
some?
want to stick
Yeah.
around, you're more than welcome, but if you want to slip out, that's fine as well. Know you've had a long day. So, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On the financial items, Ms. Roberts.
Okay, we have 4 things this evening. The first is a donation of $250 from the Fairfield County Retired Teachers. So I say this every time, but I always like to just say that we are so appreciative of any donations that come into the district. So thank you to the Fairfield County Retired Teachers. Next, I am going to go into our financial summary for the month of July. So first month of the fiscal year out of the gate. So not a ton of news. I think our main overarching story is just we're kind of in a little bit of a holding, seeing how a few of these things play out. But overall, when we look at our revenue for the first month, we received $6.2 million compared to just under 5.5 from last year, which is up 13%. Our biggest increase you'll see is in property taxes. They were at almost 2.6 versus 2.1%, 2.1 million last year. Income taxes are also up just under 5%, and our state foundation payments are up 9%. Our other revenue, which is really heavily made up of interest, is also up. You can see it's up almost $50,000 to last year. I am projecting interest to actually hold tight or even decrease slightly this year. So more just of what the unknown is within interest, but we did receive over $1 million in interest last year. So really watching that, and it's going to be really a goal of our treasurer's department this year to really manage what we have in the bank versus what we have invested, and using that money kind of wisely and making it a little bit more fluid. Just between the bank and investments, so we can really capitalize on where the higher interest rates are. Looking at expenditures, our total expenditures equaled almost 1.8 million compared to 1.6 million last year. The biggest increase was in, or at least from a percentage point, was in our salaries at just over $1 million. It was up 11%. Benefits were in line, up 10%. And then you'll see purchase services and supplies. They both look up pretty drastically, but the actual dollar volume isn't that much. And it's really just due to a shifting of when we're purchasing something. So nothing too crazy in that area. So overall, our cash balance ended the month at $21,989,184 compared to $21.3 million last year. So overall, again, 1 month in, we obviously have some big payments between our property taxes and income taxes. So we'll essentially live off of some of that cash for the next few months and then get our next round of income taxes next quarter. But overall, feel pretty good about it, pretty much right on forecast for the most part. Any questions in financials? Okay, moving into insurance. This is actually one where the theme continues of, we're interested to see what's happening here, but I also feel like we need to hold tight before we make any drastic comments. So overall, our health insurance, you can see our revenue was up, and basically revenue is just the payments into our insurance premiums. Our total expenditures were at $453,000 versus $304,000 last July. So they were up drastically to last July. I want to take you back to last year, and when we came in here, actually after August, we were drastically up to the year before that. So what we don't know yet, and what I'm really watching, because a lot of these claims are just kind of sprinkled throughout, is that by the time we get through the month of August, is it just shifting months? So we don't know that yet. We obviously are still in very good shape. Our cash balance, we ended just under $4 million compared to $3.3 million last year. So we have the correct amount of cash in our health insurance fund, but is really watching those claims. Don't know, some of it, obviously with our staff going back to school, a lot of times we tend to see July be a higher month. However, when you're comparing year over to year, you're comparing a higher month to a higher month. So to see it up that high, that's probably one of the highest months we've actually ever seen in claims. So just watching that, seeing how it plays out through the month of August, and just kind of seeing if it levels out or, what that means to our health insurance. Dental insurance actually, just kind of chugging right along. Revenue was up 15%. As a reminder, we did increase monthly premiums to $98 from $89. It was our only premium increase last year that we really saw. Our total expenditures decreased by about $1,500, so not a lot. But we are ending our month at $228,000 versus $218,000 last year. So overall, our dental program is still very strong. We're sitting right where we need to be. No real concerns at all for dental. Just really watching that health number. That's a big number. Big number, and really just seeing how that plays out over the next few months. So it's a hard number to swallow, but you're one month into the fiscal year. Any questions on either of those? Okay, the only other thing in financials that we have for this evening is to ask for the approval of a transfer of $85,674 from the general fund into our maintenance facilities. This is the same yearly transfer that we are required to do every single year into the OFCC fund, our 034 fund. So you'll see this every July, August that we make this move. That is all we have for financials, unless there are any questions.
There are no questions. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda items as recommended by the superintendent and treasurer.
So moved.
Mr. Hoffman makes the motion. I will second.
Mr. Hoffman.
Yes.
Mrs. Conrad Zingmeister.
Yes.
Mrs. Johns.
Yes.
Mr. Kimmer.
Yes.
Mr. Smeltzer.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to the new business section, 6.1, personnel services and supplemental contracts. There are a number of personnel, the contracts listed here, and there are no comments or questions. We do have, I don't know if I can go down the list, or do you want to name them?
It's up to you.
Okay, well, we have Holly Bale as the head swimming coach for the boys. And then we have Jen McMahon as the head swimming coach for the girls. Jessica Howe for the marching band corps advisor. Joel Denny as a DLT member. Aaron Lurridge as a DLT member. And Stephanie King as a DLT member. And Amanda Barr as a DLT member. If we don't have any questions or comments, I need a motion to approve the contracts as presented.
So moved.
Mrs. Johns makes a motion. I need someone second.
Second.
Mr. Smelter seconds.
Mrs. Johns.
Yes.
Mr. Smeltzer.
Yes.
Mrs. Conrad Zingmeister.
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman.
Yes.
Mr. Kimmer.
Yes.
Motion passes. Moving on to 6.2, volunteers. We have a small list of volunteers for the sports teams. Again, very much appreciative because they're not getting paid for this time as a volunteer work. And we very much appreciate any and every volunteer that works here. John Peck for middle school club soccer for boys. Josh Schultz for middle school school club soccer for girls, Hannah George for the reserve soccer girls team, and Alyssa Tipton for the high school volleyball. There are no comments or questions. I need a motion to approve the volunteers as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Kimmer makes a motion. Someone second?
I'll second.
Mr. Hoffman seconds.
Mr. Kimmer?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Conrad Zingmeister?
Yes.
Mrs. Johns?
Yes.
Mr. Smeltzer?
Yes.
Motion passes. Moving on to 6.3, the lease agreement amendment with with the YMCA Family of Lancaster and Fairfield County. And we had a chance to review the attachment contract. If there are no questions or comments, I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Ms. Johns makes the motion.
Second.
Mr. Smeltzer seconds.
Mrs. Johns?
Yes.
Mr. Smeltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Conrad Zingmeister?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Kimmer?
Yes.
Motion passes. Moving on to 6.4, revisions of the Chromebook handbook, as presented in front of us. Need a motion to this revision to the Chromebook handbook. If there are no questions or comments,
So moved.
Mr. Smeltzer makes a motion. I will second.
Mr. Smeltzer?
Yes.
Mrs. Conrad Zingmeister?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Johns?
Yes.
Mr. Kimmer?
Yes.
Motion passes. Moving into executive session. Is there going to be any action coming out of that?
No action.
No action. All right, I need a motion to adjourn into executive session.
So moved, Mr. President.
Mr. Kimmer makes a motion. I need someone to second.
I'll second.
Mr. Hoffman seconds.
Mr. Kimmer?
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mrs. Conrad Zingmeister?
Yes,
Mrs. Johns?
Yes.
Mr. Smeltzer?
Yes.
motion passes. It is now